"We're finally shutting down your embarrassing little business," my brother Lorenzo announced to the bankruptcy courtroom, straightening his tie with the smug satisfaction of a man who believed he'd already won. My parents nodded approvingly from the gallery, Laura dabbing fake tears while Marco's jaw remained set in righteous judgment. I stood at the defendant's table silently, letting their lawyer present the fraudulent petition, waiting for the moment that would destroy everything they thought they knew. But why did Judge Alina Moretti suddenly freeze mid-sentence? Her pen suspended over the documents, her eyes widening as she read the company name on the filing. Counsel approached the bench. Immediately, both lawyers moved forward. The judge's voice dropped to a harsh whisper I could barely hear. "Is this the same Nexus Shield Technologies that just secured the $189 million Department of Defense contract? The one featured in the Wall Street Journal last week?" Lorenzo's lawyer stammered something I couldn't make out. Judge Moretti looked up, her eyes meeting mine with an expression of disbelief mixed with growing anger. "I'm going to need to see extensive documentation before we proceed, because either this petition is the most incompetent filing I've seen in 32 years on the bench, or someone is attempting to commit fraud in my courtroom." My brother's confident smile began to crack. "I've founded Nexus Shield Technologies 8 years ago, in a garage with $3,000 in savings. The Rossi family didn't do garages. We did prestige. My father, Marco Rossi, ran a successful luxury car dealership chain. My brother Lorenzo was being groomed to take over. My younger sister Sophia had married into old money and spent her days on charity boards and country club committees. And I, Valentina, the middle child, the disappointment, had thrown away a business degree from Wharton to pursue what my father called playing with electronic cybersecurity. He'd scoffed when I told him my plans. That's a job, not a business. Get a real career, Valentina. Work for a bank. Meet someone appropriate. Defense technology has massive growth potential. You're 26 years old. You don't know anything about building companies. You'll fail, and then you'll come back expecting us to clean up your mess. I won't fail. They all say that. You will. I'd left his office and never asked for his approval again. The first 5 years were brutal. I lived on ramen and coffee, worked 20-hour days, and learned every aspect of the defense contracting world through painful trial and error. I made mistakes that nearly destroyed me. Bad partnerships, missed deadlines, a contract dispute that ate through my minimal savings. My family watched from a distance, waiting for the collapse they predicted. Still playing with computers, Lorenzo would ask at holidays, his tone dripping with condescension. Still working on your little hobby? Marco would add. We worry about you, Laura would say, which was code for we're embarrassed by you. I stopped attending holidays after year 3. The energy I spent defending myself was better used building my company. And build it I did. Nexus Shield Technologies developed specialized cyber security protocols for military communications technology that could detect and neutralize intrusion attempts in milliseconds. We won our first government contract in year 4, our second in year 5. By year 7, we had 47 employees, $12 million in annual revenue, and a reputation as one of the most innovative defense tech startups in the country. The $89 million contract came through 6 weeks ago. A multi-year agreement with the Department of Defense to implement our technology across 3 military branches. The deal that would transform Nexus from a successful startup into a major defense contractor. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature. Defense industry publications profiled our technology. Investors were suddenly very interested in talking to me. My family had no idea. I'd kept my success deliberately quiet, using my married name, Valentina Morelli, for all public appearances. The few relatives who'd stumbled across news about Nexus Shield didn't connect V. Morelli, CEO, with the daughter they dismissed as a failure. I preferred it that way. Their approval wasn't something I needed anymore. But apparently their interference was something I still had to deal with. The bankruptcy petition arrived 3 weeks after the contract announcement. It was filed by Lorenzo, claiming that Nexus Shield Technologies owed him $2 million from an investment he made in year 2. The petition alleged that I defaulted on repayment terms, that the company was insolvent, and that creditors needed court protection to recover what they were owed. Every word was a lie. Lorenzo had never invested a single dollar in Nexus. He'd never even expressed interest in the company beyond mockery. The documentation accompanying the petition was fabricated contracts I'd never signed, loan agreements I'd never seen, financial statements that bore no relationship to reality. It was fraud, pure and simple. The kind of fraud that could destroy a company if left unchallenged. Tying up assets in court proceedings, scaring off investors, jeopardizing government contracts that required financial stability. I called my lawyer immediately. "They're trying to force you into bankruptcy proceedings with forged documents," she said after reviewing the filing. "It's incredibly stupid. Any forensic examination will expose the fraud within hours. But in the meantime, the filing creates legal complications that could delay your DoD contract implementation. That's the point. Lorenzo knows I have something big happening. He wants to sabotage it." "How would he know that?" "My mother's cousin works at a law firm that handles some of our compliance filings. She must have seen something and mentioned it at a family gathering." I sighed. "They don't know the scale of what I've built. They just know I have a government contract and decided to interfere. Why would they want to destroy your success?" "Because my success proves they were wrong about me. Some people can't tolerate that." The court date was scheduled for a Thursday morning. I arrived early, dressed in the kind of understated professional attire I favored, expensive, but not flashy, commanding without being ostentatious. My lawyer, Alessandra Conti, joined me at the defendant's table with 3 boxes of documentation proving Nexus's actual financial status. Lorenzo arrived with our parents, staging an entrance designed for maximum impact. He wore a tailored suit I recognized from his promotional photos at the dealership. Laura had dressed in somber colors as if attending a funeral. Marco carried himself with the righteous anger of a patriarch whose family honor had been offended. They didn't acknowledge me. Not a glance, not a nod. I was the problem to be solved, not a family member to be greeted. Finally facing consequences, Lorenzo said to his lawyer loud enough for me to hear. Should have happened years ago. The gallery had a few spectators, court regulars, a journalist covering bankruptcy proceedings, some people waiting for later cases. None of them knew they were about to witness a spectacular implosion. Judge Moretti entered. I'd researched her 32 years on the bench, reputation for thoroughness, and zero tolerance for judicial misconduct. If there was anyone who would see through Lorenzo's fraud immediately, it was her. The proceedings began with Lorenzo's lawyer presenting the petition. He outlined the alleged debt, the supposed default, the need for court intervention to protect creditors. "Your Honor, the defendant has systematically avoided repayment of a substantial family loan, choosing instead to fund an unprofitable venture that has never demonstrated financial viability." Judge Moretti held up her hand. "The company named Nexus Shield Technologies, based in Reston, Virginia." "Yes, Your Honor." She pulled up something on her computer, typed briefly, and then went very still. That's when she called the lawyers to the bench. The whispered conference lasted several minutes. I watched Lorenzo's confidence erode in real time. His lawyer's face had gone pale. My father leaned forward, trying to hear his expression shifting from smug to concerned. Finally, Judge Moretti spoke loud enough for everyone. "We're going to recess for 30 minutes. During that time, I want both parties to prepare comprehensive documentation of their positions." Counsel for the petitioner, she fixed Lorenzo's lawyer with a stare that could freeze nitrogen. "I strongly suggest you verify every document you've submitted, because if I discover fraudulent filings in my courtroom, the consequences will be severe." The gavel came down. Lorenzo practically ran to his lawyer's side. "What's happening? What did she say?" I used the recess to arrange my documentation. Alessandra spread the evidence across our table, actual financial statements showing $12 million in revenue and healthy cash reserves. The DoD contract redacted for security, but clearly authentic. Letters from investors confirming interest, tax returns, audit reports, 8 years of legitimate business records. And then the forensic analysis of Lorenzo's petition. Document experts had examined his loan agreements and found they'd been created 6 days ago. Digital metadata exposed the fraud immediately. The signatures were clumsy forgeries. The financial figures were fantasy. 30 minutes later, Judge Moretti returned. "I've done some preliminary research during the recess," she announced. "Nexus Shield Technologies is not a failing company. It appears to be a highly successful defense contractor that just secured one of the largest cybersecurity contracts in the current fiscal year." She looked at Lorenzo's lawyer. "Would you like to explain why you filed a bankruptcy petition against a company with no apparent financial distress?" The courtroom doors closed behind the recess like a vault ceiling shut. 30 minutes. That was all the time the universe had granted Lorenzo to realize the ground was crumbling beneath him. I watched him across the aisle, his knuckles white around the forged papers, sweat darkening the collar of that perfect tailored suit. For the first time in my life, I saw fear flicker in his eyes. Real fear. The kind that tastes metallic on the tongue. It was almost tender. The way panic stripped away every layer of arrogance he'd worn like cologne. Alessandra laid out our evidence with the calm precision of a woman who already knew the ending. I didn't touch the folders. I didn't need to. Every number, every timestamp, every line of code that proved Nexus Shield was thriving lived inside me now. 8 years of sleepless nights of choosing payroll over rent. Of whispering to myself in an empty garage that I was not the failure they named me. All of it had led to this hushed, charged moment. When Judge Moretti returned, the air itself seemed heavier. She didn't sit right away. She stood behind the bench, letting silence do its work. Then she spoke, and her voice carried the weight of 32 years of seeing men like my brother try to bend the world to their lies. "I've reviewed the materials presented by the defense," she began. "The forensic analysis is devastating. Metadata shows the petitioner's documents were created 6 days ago. Signatures lifted from old Christmas cards. Financial figures that belong in fiction, not federal court." She turned the page slowly, deliberately. "And then there's the small matter of Nexus Shield Technologies being a critical Department of Defense contractor. Interfering with it isn't just fraud. It can be construed as a threat to national security." Lorenzo made a sound, half gasp, half choke. The color drained from his face so completely, I thought he might faint. Laura reached for his arm, but he jerked away as if her touch burned. Marco sat frozen. The patriarch mask finally cracked, revealing the small, frightened man underneath. Judge Moretti fixed Lorenzo with a stare that could have shattered glass. "Mr. Rossi, did you understand that attempting to bankrupt a company protecting American soldiers could land you in federal prison for 15 years? The gallery inhaled as one. A journalist in the back row started typing so fast I heard the keys protest. Lorenzo opened his mouth. Nothing came out at first. Then a whisper. "It was just family business. Family doesn't forge documents," I said quietly. My voice carried anyway. Family doesn't try to murder 8 years of someone else's blood and soul because their pride can't handle being wrong. The judge lifted a hand to silence any response. "I am dismissing this petition with prejudice. I am also referring this matter to the U.S. Attorney's Office for investigation into bankruptcy fraud, perjury, and potential violations under the Defense Production Act." She removed her glasses, and for a moment her eyes met mine, soft, almost maternal. "Miss Morelli, the court apologizes for the inconvenience. Your company's reputation will remain untouched by this spectacle." The gavel fell like a gunshot. Chaos followed, but it felt distant, like watching a storm through soundproof glass. Court officers moved toward Lorenzo. Laura was crying for real now, mascara streaking those perfectly powdered cheeks. Marco tried to stand, thought better of it, and sank back down. I caught his gaze across the room. For one heartbeat, something raw passed between us. Regret, maybe? Or the ghost of love that had died years ago. Then I turned away. Some wounds don't deserve the dignity of acknowledgement. Outside the courthouse, the spring air tasted like freedom. Alessandra squeezed my hand. "You okay?" she asked. I laughed, soft, surprised at the sound. I'm more than okay. I'm finally completely free. The federal investigation was swift and merciless. Lorenzo's lawyer flipped immediately, trading testimony for disbarment instead of prison. My brother wasn't so lucky. 3 years in a minimum security facility, a felony record that will follow him like a shadow. And the family dealership hemorrhaging clients who didn't want their Maseratis serviced by a convicted fraudster. Marco stepped back, became a ghost in his own empire. Laura sent letters I never opened. Nexus Shield grew anyway. We celebrated our 10th anniversary with 156 employees, $340 million in contracts. New facilities rising in North Carolina and Arizona. The Wall Street Journal ran a follow-up, the defense startup that survived family sabotage. I gave one interview, careful, measured. When they asked why he did it, I answered simply, some people would rather burn the house down than admit someone else built it better. And then there is Aurora. My daughter. 3 months old, with her father's dark curls and my stubborn chin. I rock her in the nursery. I design myself pale blues and soft golds, a mobile of tiny satellites spinning above her crib. Sometimes I tell her the story, not the ugly parts yet, but the true ones. About a woman who started with nothing but belief, who turned doubt into rocket fuel. About how the people who were supposed to love you most can sometimes be the ones who teach you how strong you really are. When you stop needing their approval. Last night, I held her close, her tiny heart fluttering against mine. Your grandparents won't be in your life, little star, I whispered. That's not punishment. That's protection. You deserve a world that sees how bright you burn. She blinked up at me, eyes already searching, already fierce. I smiled through the ache in my throat. You're going to build impossible things, Aurora. And I will be right here, cheering so loud the stars will hear me. They thought they were dragging me to court to bury me. Instead, they handed me the shovel to bury every last doubt they ever planted. Nexus Shield thrives. My daughter sleeps peacefully in a home built on my terms. And every morning I wake up knowing the most dangerous thing a woman can do is succeed without permission. Keep building. Darling listener, keep rising. Because the only thing more powerful than family doubt is a woman who decides her story doesn't end with their disbelief. If this fire lit something inside you, share it with someone who needs to hear they're stronger than the voices that tried to dim them. We rise together.